So welcome both. This is going to be quite a nice, easy one for me, which is why I've advocated cuppers, because I'm just going to sit and listen. And we will start with an apology because, Laura, you are only a week in, not even a week yet. So welcome to the business and the podcast. I know I sent you the link so you could see what you were letting yourself in for.
I know, it's the first for me this week in lots of ways. But,
and that's not going to stop. That will continue for quite a few weeks with GGC, so welcome.
Thank you.
What we normally do with the podcast is to start, I just welcome you all and then just ask your name, how long you've been in the business and what your role is. And the theme of this podcast is going to be focused around leadership. So I am going to very much just sit back and enjoy. So Laura, as we've already brought you in, do you want to start?
Yeah, thank you. My name's Laura Williams and I am now the Consents Director at GGC and I'm on day 4. So I started just on Monday. Everything is very new, but I am delighted to be here more generally and everyone's been super welcome. So no regrets, which is good. So a bit about me. I grew up in Mid Wales and when I went to university, I studied geography. I always had a kind of natural interest in the land, places, spaces, and how we use them, which kind of led me on to a career in town planning and EIA, environmental impact assessment. Following my master's in Cardiff, I was fortunate to get some work experience for Savills, who many will know as estate agents, but they're not just that. They actually have the biggest planning consultancy team in the UK. So, and it was at a time in kind of 2007 when the kind of world's economy was falling apart and there's kind of financial crash. So I did feel very fortunate to have that role, especially when they kind of kept me on as their graduate. So that was just over 18 years ago. And I never left Savills until about a couple of weeks ago. And there were lots of reasons for that, which I'm sure we'll come on to. But in that 18 years, I kind of rose up the ranks in the business there from a graduate to a director and the head of the Cardiff planning team in Cardiff, which meant kind of heading up about 17 or 18 people. And over the last few years in particular, we saw kind of quite significant growth in the team with regard to headcount and the kind of success of it in terms of its kind of profitability and turnover. So why now? You'll probably come to ask, so maybe I'll leave that for them. But
I think so. Yeah.
maybe we'll move to Jean.
Yeah.
Anything?
Any of the people who have followed the podcast from the start, it will feel like we've scripted this, but we haven't. But there's now a common theme of postgrads within the business, and people coming from higher education into this industry, which is lovely because the business will get to a stage where that's going to be a core part of what we do with interns and postgrads. Jean.
So,
where to start?
I know where to start. Been in this industry now for 28 years. Doesn't feel like it, which is probably a good thing. So I studied electrical power engineering. Grew up in Scotland, near Glasgow. So went to study my undergrad at Glasgow University, and then went to work for Balfour Beatty. So that was my kind of first graduate role. And then at that point, renewables were just really on the cusp. So I was working kind of in traction systems, so London Underground, and doing some work there. And I thought, you know what, this looks really interesting, and I think maybe I have to go and get some additional learning. So I decided to go back and do my master's. So I did that at Strathclyde University, and then I went to work for McDonald, and that was probably my introduction to really detailed engineering. So power systems analysis work. They worked worldwide for, at that time it was oil and gas. So I went and did a master's in renewables, and then I was working predominantly for a company that looked at oil and gas. So not quite on the plan. But the team were amazing. Very, very experienced team. And then I'd done 400 kV voltages all the way down to 132, substation design and overhead line design. And by that point in my career, I was kind of managing a team, I was doing some mentoring, and I was kind of thinking, what's next? Where do I go? And then I moved from, I'd always worked for large companies, so 20,000 plus, and then I moved to a company that had 80 people, and it was eye-opening. You had to do lots of different jobs. You had to think on your feet, and I absolutely loved it. Absolutely loved it. So I was there for a little while. Then I moved off to an offshore wind company where I was the first employee. So I went from 20,000 to 80 to 1. And then there we had to build the team, which was really enjoyable, and build a strategy for the company. And then following that, I came to GGC. And I've been here now just approximately 18 months and loved every minute.
Throughout that growth you've just discussed there, where was the business, or where was the stage where you went from being an engineer, or I don't like the term ground level staff, but you understand what I mean, through to I'm going on a leadership path here?
Yeah, so when I was at McDonald's, the team were really amazing. So very kind of boffiny type engineers, so mostly PhDs, but they were just such a, in terms of collaboration within the team, it was really amazing. And I think at that point, the choice for me, generally engineers get a choice where they go down a project management route or they go down a detailed engineering route, and that's kind of where I was. So I was about 29, and I could see this path in front of me. Like, I'm either going to go down project management or go down the detailed engineering route. And I decided I felt that probably I had more opportunity if I went down the PM route. And at that point, I was really, the mentoring within the company was excellent. We were doing management, 2-year leadership management training courses where Mott's took such a chance on the staff that this leadership course, what was actually happening was it was really fundamentally testing, do you actually really want to be here? Which I thought was really brave for a consultancy to do. And then at the end of that 2 years, you would either progress up the company, or actually what happened for myself was going through that, I thought, do you know what, I actually want to progress somewhere else. But that point, I think it kind of started to tick the mentoring box, and I think it was because I've been exposed to amazing mentors.
Mm-hmm.
I've been really lucky
to
this point. Only, unfortunately, by this time, only one female mentor, and I've actually only ever had one female mentor in the whole of my 28 years career, which for me is a wee bit disappointing.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's what kicked it off. And then when I went to SSE, they had no STEM programmes.
Wow.
No, the graduate programmes were just starting. So I just, volunteered and said, look, I want to get involved. I was one of the 4 founding members of our STEM programme there. And then one of our graduates, actually Fiona, who's within our team, she was actually my first engineering
I'm disappointed because she didn't drop your name in the podcast, so I'm disappointed.
So, but that really started, I suppose my mentoring, and I suppose going there, you start to build on the leadership, and then you start managing people. And so I think for me it was really McDonald that kicked it off, and it was actually really being exposed to people who'd mentored me, who I thought, wow, this is, I feel like I have to pass it on and provide that expertise or experience. I think what held me back before then was, am I good enough? Do I have the knowledge and the experience to actually, am I going to give someone the right information, or am I going to actually send them down the wrong path? But I think that that support that I'd gained, I think it really kind of then set me off to say, do you know what? Let's have a go at this and put your hand up, and you might get it wrong, but you've got to try. So, and ever since then, it's been, it's probably, now for me, it's probably one of the things that drives me the most. Being able to see someone develop, and essentially all you've done is maybe just give them a very small helping hand, or it could be a conversation, or it could be that you are mentoring them actively. But that's the biggest kick that I get out of this work now.
So is it fair to assume, because within property and consultancy, there's always, in my professional time, there seems to be a nice balance between genders. Do you think that helped with that?
In planning there is.
Yeah.
In property generally is still work to do, but I think it's better than the energy industry.
Yeah.
But there was a lot that was being done by Savills and the wider industry to really kind of address that gender pay gap, which was kind of, that really brought to light just
Yeah.
how bad it was,
Yeah.
especially women in leadership positions. And a lot has changed in 18 years at Savills. So culturally, the business was kind of transformed in terms of the support that it gave women and the intention that it had to see more women progress into leadership roles.
And what about yourself, Jean? Did you feel like you had to?
No,
Push.
unfortunately, engineering's a little bit different.
I thought that might be
wish
the
it
case.
was more like planning. So generally, I would say in terms of kind of women, so my first role, I was the only female in Scotland, which my company were really proud of. I wasn't so much. I thought we probably should have been slightly more progressive. From there, essentially, I've generally had one other female engineer that I've worked with. And I say I've had one mentor over my career who has actually been a female. And I've had some amazing male mentors. So, and I'm still getting mentored. So it's for me, it's not about female or male. It's just about diversity.
Yeah.
And that diversity brings in innovation, good challenge, great ideas. So that for me is what I'd like to see progress.
Mm-hmm.
So I think for engineers, it's definitely, unfortunately, still a bit of a slog. Still a bit of, when I started my career, essentially it was just, keep quiet, listen, because that's how you learn. You were still wearing male overalls when you were out on site because there was never any female, so you had to get the smallest size and still roll them up because they wouldn't fit. So don't get me wrong, the industry has progressed and it's great, but we're not there yet.
Mm-hmm.
If you think about, I was just looking up some statistics, at exec director level, we're talking about 16% in the energy industry are women.
Wow.
If we're talking about CEO and chairmen, 5%. 5% in 2026. So, and think about what our industry is doing just now. It's so busy. There's so much to do. And the amazing and diverse careers that we can have. It's not just about engineers or planners, accountants, office managers, health and safety. There's the careers are so diverse, yet we're still not seeing enough diversity within the industry. So there's a lot more work to do there, and it's getting better. And I think for me, Laura, myself, being able to talk on this podcast, being able to talk, we've got a lot of students who are coming into GGC, which is great. But being able to say, look, this is how we got here.
Yeah.
You can do the same. Hopefully it's a bit easier. We can give you some guidance. That helps, move the conversation on and hopefully move those statistics.
I had a really interesting conversation this morning with Joyce. They're always interesting. But she said, and on the podcast, she said about, I think we're still 10, 15, 20 years away from the switch of mentality and the conversation and the tone of women versus men. However, this morning she explained to me that her daughter had applied for the forces, and that her the three things that she'd applied for were engineering in. And I was like, that's amazing. And she's like, yeah. And it occurred to me at no point it wasn't in her thought to think this is abnormal because I'm a female. I was like, well, you've just proven your own comments incorrect. And she's like, oh yeah. So actually, I think that educational period of age group, that's the people now. They may seem young, but if we can get to those people earlier rather than later, because there are a group of people who aren't already programmed that way. We sort of need to get at them.
Yeah, I think if you think about it, part of that will come from your parents, and the exposure that you've got through family. So if your family are not in these kind of industries or maybe more traditional industries where, diversity is I'm going to say more traditional and split, you're probably not going to get that conversation at home.
Yeah.
But then I think us as an industry, we tend to like doing and putting our head down and getting the work done, but we're not necessarily good at promotion and discussing all the amazing work that we are doing. So I definitely think we've got more to do in terms of getting into schools. And I actually think in my last role, we were supporting primary school STEM. to actually start talking at that sort of level, because actually sometimes by the time kids are getting to 13, 14, their minds are already made, you know, that they maybe don't think they're suitable for a STEM career. So I actually think we need to engage younger.
But since I've started with GGC, so both my kids are Lego crazy.
Yep.
Oscar's 5 and Paisley's 9, soon to be 10. And she is like, Lego's her thing. So as an example, Christmas, she wanted a Wednesday Lego set, very big one.
Yep.
I saw the price tag and was a little bit put off by getting it, but it's all she ever asked for. And she doesn't ask for much, so we got it. It came, it was huge. She built it all on Christmas Day. She didn't say a single word to us all day. But by Boxing Day, she'd trying to work out how she could reconfigure it. So now, but before that, since I've been in GGC, I'll go in a room and I won't say, what you're building today, babe? Or like, oh, what are you engineering? Yeah. And it's a bit of a thing. And now I've started to, she understands now, and then she'll joke, I don't know, we'll be going for coffee, and she'll be like, someone engineered that, Dad. And like, it's now just become just a talking point between me and my 9-year-old. And I think it's really fun and healthy. Yeah. And you talk about primary school, but actually they're probably the biggest set of engineers in the world, because they're the Lego guys.
Building all the time,
and it's amazing. Yeah. So I think you've nailed it with that age category. It's very easy to ignore that age category because they're at an age where they're not as influential, because by the next day they've changed their mind. But is that the case? I don't think that's the case.
Well, if you think about it, in potentially someone in primary school now in 10 years, so typically if you're going to build an overhead line distribution level, it takes between 8 to 10 years. That's the time that someone in primary school, you know, can actually go through that learning process, and they're ready to leave at 16 and potentially come into this industry as an apprentice. Yeah. So
I think that's some soundbite you've just nailed there. That's crazy. We don't look at it like that.
No, it's an amazing journey. And think about the potential influence that we could go and say, look, of all the potential careers you could do, look at what we're doing in Wales. You know, there's so much that we can actually give from the experience of the team that we've got here. So that I'm really excited about. And again, you know, we're talking mentoring even at that young age, which is great. And the possibilities then for increasing diversity within our industry is massive.